So today with me from Robert's Rules Study Club is Joan Milliman, of course. She always comes on and talks about that, but also John Beckett. Nice to see you, John. And and you've been on before, you know, in the past when you were with the boards, but I think I think you've come on to talk about Robert's Rules.
I did.
In the past. Yes, so welcome. So really, we're kind of going over things because their meeting was last week on Saturday. The next meeting, are you having one in July?
Oh, yeah.
You are, okay. So that'll be the second Saturday in July. But today we're just talking about how and why does someone practice Robert's Rules?
Right. we have to follow Robert's Rules according to our bylaws, and so we have to know what to do. And most of us have not touched it since high school.
Yeah.
If then. So it's quite something. But how do you practice? That was what our lesson was about on Saturday. So you can read, of course, the big book, which is some 700 pages long. But reading a little arduous. You have to treat it as a resource.
Yes.
And there are lots of parliamentary procedure books around that are helpful, and there are textbooks on studying the same thing. But I found one of the more interesting things is the internet.
Yeah.
With a couple of sites there with John Cagle and Jim Slaughter. They're two different ones.
Okay.
And they answer questions and they go into topics that you might have to worry about. Then, of course, you can always observe the board meetings and committee meetings and take part in those meetings as a board member or as a committee member. And you can always observe Congress, which is sometimes can be a joke as far as parliamentary procedure is concerned. Participation is very important when you're learning to do this, and probably the most important is to practice. Well, you can't just throw out to the chair a motion just to test the chair's knowledge of parliamentary procedure, but in our group we have drills and questions and so on where people can actually practice Robert's Rules.
Okay. Now, John, let me ask you, are there similarities between what we see, let's say, in a courtroom? Do they follow Robert's Rules?
Actually, there are rules of procedures in the courtroom that are very similar to Robert's Rules. Specifically, the one that comes to mind right away is you got to wait until you're called on before you speak. And in court, the litigants are not allowed to speak to one another. They must address their comments to the judge. We have a similar rule in Robert's Rules. That is, you should address your remarks to the chair so that the members don't get into a dialogue with each other that can turn into a fight. Right.
And it's the chair, not by name. It's the chair. You address it to that piece of furniture.
Yeah.
And we tend to address each other and get into get too personal.
Yeah. That does seem to happen a lot. But as you said, it happens in Congress a lot too. So
it does.
Another thing that cuts down on the arguing and the dissent is certain formalities that are obeyed.
Okay.
For example, you wouldn't say, Fred, tell me what this is, but Director Smith, tell us about that. Or and you know, you don't address the chair as Joe. You say Mr. Chair or Madam Chair. Right. And you know, it kind of puts us in the frame of mind that we're going to be that these formalities are there for a reason, and that is to keep everybody at a level of how can I say it? A higher level of discussion and debate.
Okay. All right.
Civil.
Yeah, right.
That's the word.
And of course, you know, as we've seen sometimes, that's hard to do.
Right, and when there are problems, you know, in a court of law, the judge just throws a book at you and says you're in contempt of court.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, John, what happens?
Well, the judge can fine you and right on the spot, and if you continue, they'll take you away in handcuffs.
Yeah.
We don't do quite that.
Not quite, no.
It's possible for someone to be dismissed from the meeting if they're very obstreperous.
Right.
But again, you know, we're not going to throw them off the board.
Right.
That can be done, however, by the members of the whole
Right.
of all of our membership, all the residents. We all voted on it.
Right.
It's possible.
Yes.
But for the most part, you have to put up with it. Well, yes and no. So
Right,
it's
right.
not fair to the others in the meeting if you are so obstreperous, whatever that means, to hold up the proceedings of the meeting.
Right.
I mean, we're there to do some business.
Yes, yeah. Now, as far as other similarities with the courtroom and Robert's rules, I mean, some of them are, the procedures just in themselves seem to be very much the same. You know, how the two parties can't confer with each other. I mean, yes, the judge can, both lawyers can go up to and they all speak together, but it's more in private for that moment. Maybe a certain kind of a ruling, the two lawyers might come up and request to speak with the judge. He may take them in chambers, whatever it might be. That's different. But we're talking about when the proceedings are going on, it's somewhat similar.
That's true. There are a lot of parallels between the courtroom and the boardroom. And let me think of another one here. When you go in and sit on the board, you agree to obey the rules.
Right.
When you come into a courtroom, you don't have to agree.
Yeah, that's
But
there.
you have to obey the rules.
You do have to obey the rules. But,
Right.
but when you voluntarily agree to follow certain rules, then you also are impliedly volunteering to learn those rules, practice them, and obey them.
Right. Yeah, very
so
true.
that's a difference there.
Right.
Another thing that's similar, only different in the courtroom, is that debate takes place between the two lawyers.
Right.
However, it's very formal.
It is, yes.
Each one presents their side and then questions the witness alternatively.
Right.
Whereas on the boardroom, it's far less cut and dry.
Right.
And our debates are, you must stay on topic, however. And that's the one thing that sometimes gets in the weeds.
Right.
If discussions go crazy. And that's where the chair has to act as the judge.
Right.
And calm things down and get us back on track.
Okay. Now, as far as anybody who wants to join your club, they certainly can. And
Everyone is welcome. You know, if you're, it doesn't matter. If you're just curious about Robert's rules, it's lots of fun, isn't it, John?
Oh, it can be, yes.
yes.
Because we
okay.
get some wild discussions going on about anything with Robert's rules. It's really, really important.
One of the advantages of our club is that you're not having that high level of tension.
Right.
Everybody's relaxed. We all are friends. Nothing really important is going to happen. Just a learning experience.
All right.
Right.
You have a lot of board members?
A few.
Quite a few.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And again, the next meeting is until the second Saturday in July. You always meet
The towers.
at the towers.
Second floor.
And is there a fee to join?
Thank you. It's $12 a year.
Okay.
And
All
funny you should ask, because now is the time when we're starting our fiscal year. Begins in, July, I
I
think.
believe so.
Okay.
And so now's the time to come in and pay your dues and enjoy.
Okay. Very good. So we'll let people know when the next meeting is. Off the top of my head, it should be the 13th of July.
I think it is.
I think so.
Okay. At 9 o'clock in the towers. In the is it the key room?
Key
Key
Club.
The
Club.
Key Club
Key
room.
Club.
All right. Very good. Thank you, Vero. Good to see you. Nice to see you, John.
Thank you, Ken.
All right, Joan. We'll see you
Thanks,
next time.
Ken. You
Take
betcha.
care. You
Thanks so
bet.
much.